Hey Mario, that big old 500-pound some bitch, Bowser, just took the damn princess and used all the star power to put everybody in paintings. Now I need you to take your ass inside those paintings and recover the stars with a little bit of jumping, what? A little bit of punching, what? And a little bit of ass whooping, what? To save Princess Peach. And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Toad said so.
Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 316. It is the last day of the week, aka the Big Bang Attack workout. I am feeling great, very excited, very happy right now, and looking forward to this workout. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today. Stone Cold Steve Austin. So, would I say Stone Cold Steve Austin is my favorite wrestler? Not necessarily, but was he probably one of the best wrestlers of all time? I'd probably say so. So, today's episode was going to be dedicated to this guy and why he was probably so popular and all these other things, because realistically, out of all of the wrestlers that were huge back in the day, I would say maybe like top 5 all time. He's definitely in the top 5, which is interesting that you would think he'd be number 1, but unfortunately there's a giant actor amongst them that probably a little bit more popular in the normal sense, but this guy, my goodness. And I wanted to take this episode to talk about it, because when am I ever going to really have a chance to get 316 on here? And then the entire, just everything about that. So I wanted to just take this time to really, not necessarily gush, but really look at just certain aspects of his character that make it so that he was so fucking awesome, and that made it so a lot of people liked him at that time. He was like literally the perfect wrestler at the perfect time at the apex of wrestling. So I wanted to just look at that, talk about it, because why not? So one of the few like wrestling things I would love to talk about. And besides, it's 316. Like I said, when am I going to really talk about this? I'm not going to use the date. So it seems like a good idea to at least go for this. But with that being said, I will see you at Mother Base. Alright, so started this day off with single arm lat pull down, but anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand here. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Oh, hell yeah. Anyways, the main reason why I wanted to discuss him was honestly just because it was 316. I think it was just the right occasion to do it. Now I'll say this. Is he one of my favorite wrestlers? Probably. Would I say he is my favorite wrestler? No. I would say probably favorite wrestler would have to be Sting, most likely, or Ric Flair, one of the two. But I think that he's up there for a lot of different reasons. I think he's up there in the top 5 conversation of all time. I think most people can agree on that, or at least in the modern era, or that specific era, I guess, because obviously there are so many eras. Wrestling has been going on for literally a century now at this point. So obviously there are different eras, like the old school, even before like the big boy era and stuff, when it was the WWF and stuff like that, is a little different, obviously. But anyway, I think that Stone Cold happened to be at the right place at the right time perfectly. And I wanted to talk about that for a second, because it is interesting that sometimes it is truly fate to be at the right place at the right time with the right people around you, where there was a lot of turmoil around that time, especially in that company, WWF at the time, because they were losing to WCW. And then all of a sudden, the stars that they had, they made do with, and they turned them into superstars, especially particularly Stone Cold Steve Austin, as well as The Rock, who is his nemesis. Now, not obviously all the time his nemesis, because the main nemesis was Vince McMahon, which is also a great foil for Austin, who basically was the entire driving point of his character and what made him such a good character as compared to most other wrestlers. And that is the basic fuck you to the system that a majority of people would want to do in their regular everyday life. And he was basically able to do it. And not only that, but do it with a great attitude, like a fuck you attitude, didn't give a shit, and kept doing it over and over again, even though his job was threatened, his title was threatened, things were threatened all the time, but he'd always come out on top. But that was the thing. And I think that a majority of storytellers always forget that, really. Hell, they even forgot it themselves a few years after, near the end of really what his peak was. But the thing is that most people kind of understand that you want to see the good guy come out on top, or if not necessarily the good guy, because he wasn't necessarily quote unquote a good guy. He was I'm going to do this on my own, fuck everybody, which is fair and fine. And I like that in a story sense. Many modern characters are written with this same ideal, but the issue is that a lot of them talk the talk but don't really walk the walk, so you don't believe what they're saying. They're just saying or playing a character. And I think that fundamentally you see this a lot in other mediums like movies and stories like that, where you will see what's going on but you don't believe what's happening. And with Austin in particular, you believed everything that he was saying because he would back it up immediately. It wasn't like he was not waiting for shit to happen. He made shit happen. And I think that a lot of people now, particularly when making stories, forget that part or they have to have an edge, when not all characters need an edge. But if your character has an edge, let it be a realistic edge. A lot of it is fundamentally good versus evil there, even though he's not necessarily the full-on evil, because of course you want some edge in your character, because we all have some type of edge in ourselves, really. So we want that projected out in a quote-unquote badass type of way. It is a character, nonetheless, that works out, and for some reason hasn't really ever been able to be replicated. Of course, now it's not being able to be replicated because I think everybody understands fundamentally it was such a pivotal character that if you try to do it in modern day, you're just copying and pasting what the man did. The story itself is so good, and I think that really is what stands the test of time. Even when going back and watching some of these Reliving the War shout out wrestling bios, just watching that entire storyline play out, you can really see how it's a back and forth, how the bad guys are winning at the beginning of the show, but at the end, Austin gets his comeback somewhere, some way. And then the next episode, Austin is on top at the beginning, but then all of a sudden at the end, he's hanging on the Undertaker's symbol or something like that. So it's like a give and forth, a give and take type of thing. And I think that most of the time storytelling a lot of times nowadays does the mistake of not really doing that. They are either one-sided or the other, where something where like the bad guy dominates until like the very end, where Deus Ex Machina, all of a sudden hero wins, or the other way around, where the hero goes through no real challenge, but instead it just goes through the motions in order to conquer the foe or vanquish the foe, and thus the foe itself is not really a foe, it's more of just a pylon, really. And it's interesting to think about it in that terms, in that sense, because I think that this was probably one of the best examples of how to do a long-term story where it's not just him versus a specific person like The Rock or Shawn Michaels or even Bret Hart, but more so along the lines of him versus the entire system and saying, fuck you to that entire ideal. I'm going to do things my way, how I want to do it. And I think that a lot of people would want to accept that in their life, really. 316 Day in 2020 was probably one of the funniest things I've seen in quite some time. Also kind of one of the craziest things to see in quite some time. I don't think there's ever been a TV show and a nugget of like a true time capsule of the world in that moment right there. If you've ever checked it out, check it out. Oh, hell yeah. And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not film done. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, back to the main subject matter at hand. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Great wrestler. Great storyteller. Generally speaking, probably one of the best wrestlers of all time. The brief reason why I wanted to talk about this was, one, because of the number 316. There's not going to be many times I'll be able to talk about something like this, one. And two, also because it is good to talk about somebody who was at the pinnacle of something that they were at. And you could argue that wrestling is an artistry within itself. So I wanted to talk about that in the sense that this person happened to just catapult an entire company and everything on his back, basically, with the help of a few other people, of course, because you can't have one without the other, aka the bad guy to go with the good guy here. But even then, he was the cool guy. It wasn't even a good guy, quote unquote. But still, it was something that I don't think will ever be replicated ever again. That type of cool, badass, fuck the system type of guy is no longer possible, I feel like, at least in wrestling terms, maybe in other mediums and fashions, but he is the archetype for that type of style of storytelling and person, really, that you want to see win and just will do anything, kick ass, and I wanted to just give the praise to the guy, even though everybody does, because he's probably one of the best wrestlers to do it, so it's great. But I like looking at it from an arts perspective, or like at least the storytelling perspective, because he's a great storyteller. It's great to see, like, the clashing between, the machine versus the man, that entire idea of how the machine will continue to try to fuck over the regular man, but yet he will continue to supersede that and continue on drinking beer and kicking ass no matter what comes his way, and being able to control a crowd with the palm of your hand. And even to this day, if you hear the glass breaking, I think a majority of people will instantly think of that theme song immediately. So it is one of those cultural milestones that it's very rare for somebody to have with even just a sound effect, for the love of God, you know what I mean? So it's kind of astonishing to at least look at and appreciate it, that you people were there to witness it, and like I was there to witness some of that, So with that being said, though, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one was just a random one, but nonetheless, always very, very fun to talk about this. I don't know if I'm going to do another number one, if there's another number that's coming up that I don't know about. Maybe there might be one, actually, but that might be a little bit of ways. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. Stay cool. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.